welcome to Twisted Llama's beginner crochet tutorial. In this video, you will learn the single crochet stitch. In patterns, single crochet is abbreviated as SC. When starting a new row of stitches, you will have a starting chain to give you height. The starting chain for a single crochet is 1. To start off this swatch, we're going to make a slip knot, nice and snug on our hook. And then we're going to chain 10 for 10 stitches across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, since the single crochet gets a starting chain of 1, we need to add one more for a total of 11 chains. Some patterns count the starting chain as a stitch, and in that case you would skip your first stitch and go into the next. But we are not going to count the starting chain as a stitch. So we're just going to skip the starting chain and work our stitch right here into our second chain from the hook. So just insert your hook into your chain, yarn over, and pull a loop through that chain. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Now to complete the stitch, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. That is the single crochet. Now we're going to work into the next stitch. Make sure you do not work into the stitch that already has your single crochet in it. So going into the next chain, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Yarn over and pull through both loops to finish the stitch. Now we will go into the next stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. That's 3 single crochets. Here's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and our 10th single crochet goes in our last chain. Your chain might get a little loose. You can just snug it right back up. And there we have 10 single crochets. Now real quick, I'm going to go over what we're looking at here so you know how to count your stitches later on. This is my starting chain down here at the bottom, and each one of these little V's is a single crochet stitch. You can see the top of the stitch has these 2 loops. We will be working through both of these loops on the next round. You always work through both loops when you're stitching unless the pattern tells you to work through the front or the back. The front loops are always the loops closest to you, and the back loops are always the ones further away. If you turn it over, you'll notice these little bars back here. This is the 3rd loop of a single crochet stitch. If you ever need to work through the 3rd loop, the pattern will specifically say so. Now let's put our hook back in. To continue onto another row, we need to turn our work, but first we're going to chain our starting chain of 1. And then just turn it around. Now, we don't want to work into the starting chain, we want to go right into the top of our single crochet from the last round. So So insert your hook into the top, and you'll notice I have both of those loops on my hook. Yarn over and pull a loop through that stitch. Now you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and complete the stitch. Now we're going to go into the top of the next single crochet. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both stitches. Just work all the way down your row, and you should have 10 stitches. You'll notice as you go along that it's a little easier to hold your work than it was from the starting chain because there's more to hold on to and you have more control. So this is 10. I'm going to chain 1 and turn and go back the other way. Since we are turning, the rows you see will alternate being the front of the stitches and the backs of the stitches. The fronts of the stitches have those V's, and the backs have what looks like an upside down V with the 3rd loop bar. So you'll be able to count your rows by knowing this is your starting chain, your first row single crochets with the little V's, the 2nd row they're upside down, and the 3rd row of V's again. If your edges are not staying straight right here as you work up, you want to make sure first of all that you have 10 stitches across. If you are missing a stitch, it will make it go a little wonky. And also, you want to make sure you're starting in the same first stitch and ending in the last stitch every time, not crocheting in the starting chains. If you would like to use stitch markers, you just place them in your first and last stitches, and it kind of gives you an idea of where to start and stop. So, for example, let me finish out this row. I know that my last stitch is going to be where the stitch marker is placed. So I'll just pop that out, make my last stitch, chain 1, turn. Then after you make your first stitch on the next row, just pop your stitch marker back in there. You can close them up if they fall out on you. And then you continue going, and then I know that my last stitch will be where my stitch marker is. Even if you use this method to make sure you are stitching in the first and last spaces, make sure you still have 10 single crochets across. Just keep going on with this and practice, practice, practice. Keep turning rows, and I will see you for the next stitch. Thanks for watching.